April 1st, 2010. For many, it was a day tinged with promise, a step forward. On this day, Daniel Mthimkhulu was appointed to a powerful, pivotal role, head of engineering services at the Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa, PRASA. It was a significant moment. Here was a black South African man, seemingly equipped with impressive qualifications, ascending to a top-tier technical position within a critical state-owned enterprise. He was seen by many as an inspiration, a trailblazer making waves, a symbol of progress and expertise in a demanding field. However, what no one knew was that hidden underneath this success that everyone was happy about was a secret, a devastating, unforgiving truth that would take years to claw its way into the light. This is the story of how a fake engineer destroyed South Africa's railway system. Daniel Mthimkhulu's journey within the Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa began like many others when he joined the organization back in the year 2000. For anyone looking from the outside, his rise through the ranks over the next decade might have seemed like the steady progress of a capable and ambitious employee. He moved from one position to another, each step taking him higher within the crucial engineering services department. But what his colleagues and superiors didn't know was that this climb was powered by a deeply deceptive secret, not by genuine academic achievement in his purported field. The cornerstone of Mthimkhulu's manufactured career was a collection of impressive, yet entirely fake, engineering qualifications. On paper, he was a highly educated man. His resume boasted a national diploma supposedly obtained from the Vaal University of Technology, a significant achievement in itself. But he didn't stop there. He also claimed to hold a bachelor's degree in mechanical and maintenance engineering from one of South Africa's most respected institutions, Wits University. To top it all off, lending an international air of brilliance to his profile, Mthimkhulu asserted he had earned a doctorate in engineering management from the prestigious Technische Universität München in Germany. These qualifications painted a picture of a man with a profound and specialized understanding of engineering, exactly what PRASA would look for in its top technical minds. The stark reality, however, was that Daniel Mthimkhulu's highest legitimate educational attainment was simply a matrix certificate, the equivalent of a high school diploma. The impressive array of degrees and doctorates was nothing more than a figment of his imagination, expertly presented as fact. Armed with these fictitious credentials, Mthimkhulu successfully positioned himself for increasingly senior roles. A very important moment in his dishonest climb up the ladder happened on April 1st, 2010. On that day, PRASA made him their head of engineering services. This was a hugely influential position, placing him in charge of the technical heart of the rail agency. It goes without saying that such a role had stringent minimum requirements, typically demanding at least an engineering diploma or a degree, qualifications that Mthimkhulu only pretended to possess. His fake qualifications didn't just open doors to powerful positions, they also opened the floodgates to a significantly inflated salary. From the moment he started claiming these advanced degrees, he was earning far more than he would have with just a matrix certificate. But the deception escalated even further. Then, in September 2010, just a few months after he became head of engineering, Mthimkhulu told PRASA something quite startling. He claimed he had received a very well-paying job offer from DB Schenker, a major German engineering company. The offer, he said, was for an annual salary of 2.8 million rands, which was approximately $383,500 at the time. PRASA felt they might lose their supposedly highly skilled engineering chief. So, they made a decision that would have big consequences. They chose to match the German company's offer to keep him. This action nearly doubled Mthimkhulu's already large salary. His pay jumped from around 1.6 million rands, which was about $219,000, to an incredible 2.8 million rands per year. That's almost double. This single act, based on a fake offer letter for a job in Germany he was never actually offered, would cost PRASA a lot of money over the next 63 months. The railway agency ended up paying him over 7 million rands, more than he should have rightfully earned. That 7 million rands was equivalent to a very rough estimate of about $730,000. All this money was lost because of lies built on top of other lies, starting with those non-existent degrees from universities he never actually attended. Now that Daniel Mthimkhulu was officially PRASA's head of engineering, he had a lot of power and influence. His job was much more than just a fancy title. It came with a huge amount of responsibility. He was in charge of making sure all the technical parts of South Africa's passenger trains and railway lines were safe and working well, and he also had to plan for their future. People expected him to be the expert who could give good advice on everything. This included everyday tasks, like train repairs, and also big decisions, like buying new trains that cost many millions of rands. When Mthimkhulu signed a document or gave his approval for something, it was taken very seriously. The engineers who worked in his team saw him as their leader and trusted his guidance. During these years, Mthimkhulu was often seen and heard in public. He was shown as a very skilled professional, like a perfect example, a poster boy for great engineering in the country. News articles were written that praised his skills, which people thought he had, and he would talk confidently about complicated railway projects. This all helped to build up the idea that he was the right man for such an important job. Because so many people admired and trusted him, the truth about what was really going on behind the scenes was even more shocking when it finally came out. When PRASA had good news to share about engineering innovations or future plans, he was often one of the faces put forward. He would appear in media briefings or be quoted in news articles, speaking with apparent authority on complex subjects like locomotive technology, rail infrastructure upgrades, and the future of passenger transport in the country. His pronouncements carried weight, not just within PRASA, but also in the public sphere, where people were eager for reassurance that the nation's vital rail system was in capable hands. During this period, the public perception of Mthimkhulu was largely positive, shaped by these carefully managed appearances and the impressive credentials that were often highlighted. He was seen as a highly educated expert, a black South African who had risen to a prominent position in a technically challenging field, a narrative of achievement and aspiration. Because people believed his impressive but completely fake qualifications, no one questioned Mthimkhulu's power at PRASA. So he was deeply involved in making big decisions that cost PRASA, and in the end, South African taxpayers, a lot of money. The worst and most costly example of this was a well-known deal in 2013. This deal was to buy 70 new trains called locomotives from Spain for a massive 3.5 billion rands, which was approximately 357 million US dollars at the time. Mthimkhulu was a very important person in this huge buying project. Amazingly, people later found out that he had played a big part in changing the technical details for these new trains. Because he interfered and changed things, the result was terrible. The first 13 trains that were sent to South Africa, costing around 600 million rands, about 61.2 million US dollars, were found to be too tall for the country's existing railway tracks. They were built for European railways, not South African ones. This meant they couldn't really be used on many of the railway lines unless a lot of expensive changes were made to the tracks or to the trains themselves. This wasn't just a small mistake, it was a giant mess. PRASA was stuck with very expensive trains that didn't fit, just sitting there collecting dust instead of carrying passengers. The amount of money lost was huge. It wasn't just the money wasted on buying the wrong trains, but also the money PRASA could have earned if it had working trains, and all the travel problems it caused for people. This disaster badly hurt PRASA's chances of making its train services better or buying new trains to replace its old ones. While the problem of the too tall trains became the most famous example of bad management while he was in charge, his overly high salary, which he got through lies, was also always costing PRASA money. Every month, he took home much more money than he would have earned with his real, very basic qualifications, or what was fair for such a job. All this was going on while everyone in the country thought a very smart and trustworthy expert was managing their railways. But even the biggest, most carefully planned lies start to fall apart, and after a while, the truth begins to come out. Daniel Mthimkhulu's career didn't start to fall apart quickly. It began with rumors that wouldn't stop, difficult questions being asked, and the hard work of people who felt that something was not right. The first big problems in the false image he showed to the world started to appear because of the non-stop hard work of some special reporters called investigative journalists. These journalists might have gotten secret information from people working inside PRASA, or maybe they just suspected there were bigger problems causing trouble at the company, so they started looking very closely into the pasts of important people there. Mthimkhulu had a very public and important job, and he was involved in very big projects that caused a lot of disagreement, like the oversized trains that didn't fit the tracks. So it was only natural that these journalists became very interested in him. Soon, questions started to come up about whether his qualifications, which everyone talked so much about, were actually real. People began to wonder, Were these degrees actually real, especially the impressive doctorate he said he got from Germany? As media reports started to circulate in mid-2015, raising these alarming questions, a sense of unease likely began to ripple through PRASA. Imagine the initial disbelief. Could it be possible that their head of engineering, a man responsible for so much, was not who he claimed to be? The pressure mounted quickly. These weren't just quiet rumors anymore. They were public accusations splashed across newspapers and online platforms, demanding answers and accountability. PRASA, now facing intense public scrutiny, had no choice but to launch its own internal investigation around July 2015. This wasn't a simple matter of asking Mthimkhulu for his degree certificates again. This time, the agency had to go directly to the source, the educational institutions he claimed to have attended. Investigators would have meticulously contacted the Vaal University of Technology, Wits University in Johannesburg, and, crucially, the Technische Universität München in Germany. The process would have involved formal inquiries, requests for student records, and cross-referencing names and graduation dates. One can only imagine the tense atmosphere as PRASA awaited responses. For Mthimkhulu, this period must have been one of immense anxiety. His elaborate web of lies, so carefully maintained for over a decade, was now under direct threat of exposure. Did he try to bluff his way through? Did he offer explanations or attempt to discredit the inquiries? While his exact reactions during these initial internal queries aren't fully public, the outcome was undeniable. The responses from the universities started coming in, and they were damning. The Vaal University of Technology likely found no record of the national diploma he claimed. Wits University, a prestigious South African institution, would have confirmed that Daniel Mthimkhulu had not, in fact, earned a degree in mechanical and maintenance engineering from their faculty. The most critical blow, perhaps, came from Germany. The Technische Universität München, the institution from which he claimed his doctorate, the very qualification that added such a significant sheen to his profile, confirmed that he had never been registered as a PhD student, let alone awarded a doctorate. His entire academic history, the bedrock of his career and inflated salary, was proven to be a fabrication. The celebrated engineer had only a matrix certificate to his name. Faced with this irrefutable evidence, PRASA had to act. The man they had entrusted with so much was a fraud. In July 2015, around the same time the devastating truth about his qualifications became undeniable, Daniel Mthimkhulu was suspended from his lucrative 2.8 million rand a year post. The fall from grace was swift and public. Shortly thereafter, with the investigation confirming the full extent of his deception, he resigned from the Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa. The poster boy image was shattered, replaced by the stark reality of a man who had faked his way to the top. When Daniel Mthimkhulu's big lies were uncovered, it wasn't just the end of his job at PRASA. It was the start of a long and difficult time with the South African courts and legal system. He quit his job in 2015, and that part of his story ended. But a new part began, with police looking into his actions and court cases starting. The police and legal officials had clear proof that he had lied and that the government's train company, PRASA, had lost a lot of money because of him. So they started to prepare a criminal case to take him to court. The shock of finding out the truth and his leaving PRASA happened around the middle of 2015. But even though the legal process can be slow, it was moving forward. In early 2016, Mthimkhulu was arrested. This was confirmed by the Hawks, who are a special police group in South Africa that deals with big crimes like organized crime, corruption, and crimes related to business. He was officially accused of several serious crimes, mostly to do with fraud, which means lying or tricking to get something unfairly. These accusations were about the fake qualifications he showed PRASA for many years, the German doctorate degree he never really got, and the extra high salary he dishonestly got. He especially got this high salary because of a fake job offer for 2.8 million rands from a German company called DB Schenker. The government lawyers said that he had deliberately tricked PRASA to get benefits he didn't deserve, and this caused the company to lose a lot of money. It was also reported that he was accused of other crimes like uttering, which means using a fake document as if it were real, and forgery, making fake documents. This meant a long court fight was about to begin. During all this time, Mthimkhulu said he was innocent. He pleaded not guilty to the crimes he was accused of. His trial took place over a few years in a special court in Johannesburg that deals with complicated fraud cases involving businesses. The lawyers for the government carefully presented their side of the story. they showed a huge amount of proof that they had collected during their investigation. People from the Wahl University of Technology, Wits University, and the Technische Universität München in Germany were probably asked to come to court or provide written statements. These statements would say that Mthimkhulu never got the qualifications he said he had from their institutions. Officials from PRASA would have told the court about how they hire people, what qualifications Mthimkhulu gave them, how he got promoted quickly, and how he got a big pay raise because of the fake German job offer. The fake job offer letter was a very important piece of proof, along with his CV, his job application document, which was full of lies. The court heard all the details about how his lies directly helped him get his important job and the very high salary he received for many years. Finally, in January 2022, the court delivered its judgment. After considering all the evidence and testimony, Daniel Mthimkhulu was found guilty. The court convicted him on 3 counts of fraud, pinpointing specific instances where his deceit had defrauded PRASA. These convictions were directly linked to his falsified qualifications that secured him his job and promotions, and the fraudulent German offer letter he used to unjustly enrich himself by nearly doubling his salary. With the conviction secured, the focus shifted to his sentencing. This moment arrived in September 2024. The court, in handing down its sentence, did not mince words about the severity of Mthimkhulu's crimes. He was sentenced to an effective 15 years of direct imprisonment. In her reasoning, the magistrate emphasized the seriousness of the fraud, highlighting the significant financial prejudice PRASA had suffered, which ultimately was a loss to the South African public. But the consequences didn't end with imprisonment. The law also sought to recoup some of the ill-gotten gains. Even before the criminal trial concluded, the Asset Forfeiture Unit, AFU, of the National Prosecuting Authority had been active. The AFU successfully obtained a court order to seize Mthimkhulu's assets. The aim was to recover the proceeds of his criminal activities. Reports indicated that assets worth over 5 million rands were targeted, and there was also a court order for him to pay back approximately 5.8 million rands to PRASA. This meant that not only would he spend a significant time behind bars, but the financial benefits he had accrued through his elaborate lies were also being clawed back by the state. When Daniel Mthimkhulu was found guilty and sent to prison in September 2024, it might have been the legal end to his story of lies, but the harm he caused when he was PRASA's head of engineering was huge, and the problems from it would last for many years. What happened was much more than just one man's shame. It created big problems for the Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa, PRASA, made people lose trust, and made everyone ask serious questions about what was wrong with the system. The first and clearest problem was the money PRASA lost. PRASA was already having a tough time with running things smoothly and not having enough money from the past. So this made things much worse. Also, the damage to PRASA's good name was huge. It was perhaps even more harmful than the money it lost straight away. For many years, people had already been complaining about PRASA because its trains were often not on time, there were worries about safety, and the trains and tracks were old. The Mthimkhulu scandal made all these feelings much worse and destroyed much of the trust people still had. How could people trust the company when its head of engineering, the person in charge of train safety and future plans, was a trickster with fake qualifications? It made PRASA look like a company that was very careless about its rules and how it hired people. If someone could lie their way into such an important job and nobody found out for over 10 years, people wondered what other serious problems were hidden there. This scandal made people ask serious questions about how PRASA was managed, who was supposed to check if the qualifications were real. How could such a big lie, with many fake degrees from different universities, even one from another country, and not be caught? It seemed like there was a complete failure in checking things properly. Inside PRASA, finding out the truth probably made the honest, hardworking staff feel very down, especially the engineers who didn't know they were working for a boss whose power wasn't real. It made people doubtful and suspicious, and it became harder for PRASA to find and keep good, honest workers.